Hello and welcome to this episode of the Kings of Garbage Time Football podcast, where we help you sort through the garbage that is mainstream football analysis to become a more knowledgeable football fan and a better fantasy football general manager. I'm joined here by Omar Rodriguez, Colton Watson, and making his podcast debut, the fifth member of our team now, Hunter Garcia, shrouded in the darkness. Hunter, welcome to the podcast.
It's good to be here. You know, the dark horse had to show up eventually.
The dark horse.
Oh, I'm already here, dude.
All right. Here. So for this episode, we were originally going to do positional rankings, and then Colton came up with an even better idea. Why don't we just do positional drafts? So this week, we're going to do 3-round quarterback draft. So that'll be the top 12 quarterbacks. And then we're going to do a 5-round running back draft. So that'll be the top 20 running backs. So to just jump right into it, no one knows the draft order yet. That's funny because whenever we did leagues, that was the first thing everyone wanted to know in the offseason was
exactly
what's the draft order? What's the draft order? What's the draft
know
order?
who you get.
Yeah. So
important.
I've kept it a secret this whole time because even I don't know because I'm going to draw helmets out of this bag. So
oh gosh, with my
first
luck
up
being last
is the Oakland Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders. So that'll be
Raiders.
Omar
Really
Rodriguez.
so easy, dude.
Omar, the Raiders fan, you're the first one on the board. Are you taking Patrick Mahomes?
You're easy.
All right, let's see what you say, dog.
Okay. You guys want me to make the pick already,
gotta
or are you
say
guys
it. Go
gonna
ahead,
do
Omar.
already?
You're
Go
for it.
I thought you were gonna choose the whole draft order, but okay, I'll make the
He's
pick.
using up this
No,
whole
we're doing
time,
one
dude.
at a time.
one of those
Obviously,
guys.
no. Obviously, it's Mahomes. I think he's just gonna just go off again like he usually does, regardless. But yeah, Tariq Hill and Kelsey are probably gonna be looking to put up the same numbers, if not, So yeah, definitely Mahomes. I don't think any of you guys have a different, I guess, option, right?
No, and he's pretty much gonna be the QB1 until he probably retires, honestly, or gets close to that, right? So yeah, I
Whether
don't
dynasty redraft, it looks like he's gonna be the QB1 for a while.
because he can just do everything. And he's so good, so young.
Yep. So
But yeah,
congrats on the easy pick, Omar. But because you picked first in this draft, that means you will pick fourth at the start of the running back draft. So just keep that in mind.
That's fine.
that's where it gets spicy.
You're
All right.
spicy.
That's
Next
right. You're
up,
gonna see, baby.
the Carolina
You're making the next pick,
Panthers.
baby.
That's
Oh, never
me.
mind.
So you already know the pick. It's going to be my boy Josh Allen. Josh Allen out of Reedley.
That's right.
He's of the picks on here, he's the one I like the most. I think he has a better chance of staying healthy than Kyler Murray. I think he's the closest thing to Cam Newton we have that is not Cam Newton. That's part of why Josh Allen is my favorite player. So easy pick for me. Josh Allen was always my number 2 guy. He was the guy I was hoping would fall in our Superflex dynasty. There we go.
Yeah. Good Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis there too.
And Emmanuel Sanders now as well.
Oof.
Incredibly underrated. And Cole Beasley still there.
Is Dawson Knox there?
Dawson
What's the
Knox.
tight end?
Dawson
Yeah.
Knox
He's
is the
there,
tight end,
but
it is what it is.
But they need a tight end.
Yes. Zach Ertz possibility. Don't cross it off just yet. So third pick, which means second pick in the running back draft, is Colton Watson.
Yeesh.
So
Okay.
Colton, who you got?
So your pick actually helped me out a lot. I actually had Josh Allen as second, but someone who had pretty close to him, and you might think I'm going to say Kyler Murray. I'm actually going to say Lamar Jackson, who is my third QB in this draft. And the reason I picked Lamar is because we saw his ceiling in 2019. Really, honestly, his ceiling it's pretty close to Mahomes, if not better, to be honest. So with Lamar, he does everything that Josh Allen and Kyler Murray do, but he's better in the run game. And they might be better throwers, right? But he is just better on his feet. And I kind of made this list thinking that this is a 4-point passing touchdown league. So him getting all those rushing touchdowns and yards, because he runs like a running back, Lamar is obviously an easy choice here. And That's why I think with the revamped offense, now that he actually has a receiver outside of Hollywood Brown to throw to, I feel like it's going to be a really good season and expecting a bounce back from that whole offense, including Mark Andrews.
Yes, and I probably should have, just to make it clear, said at the beginning that this is just going to be the same scoring as our own home dynasty league. So for quarterbacks, it's your standard quarterback scoring plus a 3-point bonus for 40-yard touchdowns or more. So just an added little sprinkle on top.
This is redraft.
Yes, this is all for this upcoming season, not dynasty. No one's going to pick Cam Akers when we get to our running back portion of the draft, unfortunately. Colton is in mourning as our resident Rams fan.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It is what it is. Still fresh.
So I don't have to pull the helmet out of the bag, but I want to do it anyway because it's fun. So Indianapolis Colts, Hunter Garcia, our resident Colts fan, is on the board. Can't pick Andrew Luck. Hunter Garcia, who are you picking?
Well, I'm going to do something that more than likely is going to surprise everybody. And I know I'm going to get some hate for it, but I'm going to pick Justin Herbert as my fourth quarterback off the board. Now, Keenan Allen is one of my favorite wide receivers to have. I never get him in a league, but I always want him. His combination with Justin Herbert was just amazing last year, and I think it's just going to progress even better. He has, Mike Williams as his number 2 wide receiver, and he's a stud himself. So, I mean, he just has all the weapons he really needs. Austin Ekeler is a receiving back, and he's the running back 1 on the team. That's just points for him every time. Most touchdowns are going to be through Justin Herbert. I feel like the points are just going to add up really well.
Yeah, and I apologize if it looks like I'm eating on the podcast. It's because I am, because our schedule's a little bit off this week. But yeah, Justin Herbert, I like the pick. As the Keenan Allen owner in our Dynasty League, I obviously am a big fan of Justin Herbert for saving Keenan Allen's fantasy stock. But Hunter, it's not that crazy of a pick because guess who is back on the board? It is you. So 5th overall pick now. Who you got?
For my next pick, this one's going to be a lot simpler for me. It's going to be Kyler Murray. DeAndre Hopkins is an amazing wide receiver. I mean, he could carry the team if he needs to, but he doesn't have to. I mean, I think they still have Fitzgerald there, and they still have some young wide receivers who can really take the next step.
Rondell Moore.
Yeah, they have a good receiving back in Chase Edmonds. So I'm not too worried about him. He's not the biggest back either, so I don't worry about him poaching touchdowns too much. Kyler Murray can also rush. I don't hope to see that too much if I own him because I don't want him getting injured, but, it's an added bonus that you can always count on. Pretty easy pick for me. Not to mention
AJ Green, who statistically cannot be as bad as he was last year. There has to be some sort of regression back to closer to normal AJ Green.
My former hero.
You'd like to hope.
Yeah. Hopefully in a new offense, he feels a little more excited, a little more rejuvenated. Not just because I own him in our Dynasty League. So, Kyler Murray off the board. Colton, you're up next.
Okay, so
make the pick that I think you're going to make.
I don't know. It depends on who you think I'm going to say. Okay, so this is barring obviously him not playing, but I have Aaron Rodgers here.
Oh, I like that.
And
that was not what I expected.
Honestly, you just can't discount the guy. He's MVP last year. Obviously, really good player. He's older in age, but he's like Tom Brady to where it really doesn't matter how old he is. As long as he can play, he can play. And obviously, he can play. He has weapons there. They're not like terribly great weapons depth-wise. I mean, he's got Adams, and then he's got Bob Tunyon. But it doesn't matter, right? He's Aaron Rodgers. He can do anything, and I think he's a solid choice for 2021 and probably into the future, depending on how his Packers stuff goes.
So I just pulled up the list here of the top scorers in our league. So that's standard quarterback scoring with the big touchdown bonus. My boy Josh Allen went number 1. Mahomes obviously did not play in the final game of the season. He ended up number 3. Aaron Rodgers was number 2. So that's a pretty big pick there in the second round.
It's a steal at that point, yeah.
So with me on the clock now, I am going to go with the guy who averaged the most points per game among quarterbacks last year. The guy that poor Joseph internet clocked out on him. He wasn't able to acquire in this little draft of ours. Dak Prescott. I think it's the easy pick looking at the board here. I was torn between Tom Brady and Jalen Hurts if Colton did go Dak Prescott like I thought. Aaron Rodgers kind of did slip my mind at that point. But now I don't have to choose because I'm getting Dak Prescott with a terrible Cowboys defense, going to be in a high-profile Cowboys offense. I don't know if it'll be as blistering of a pace as he started out with last year. Some of those games were just absolutely ridiculous. The Falcons game where they were getting smoked. This is obviously just poor coaching by the Falcons. But I think Dak Prescott is going to be I'm taking him at 7. He's going to be a top 7 scorer next year pretty easily. So I'm going to go ahead and be confident in that pick. And Omar, you're up next.
All right. Well, I had the same pick at this choice. I'm gonna have to go with Tom Brady. I just think he's gonna be coming in hot again this year. He's got really good weapons, and just all the way around wide receivers and running backs. I really love their running back core. I hate, as a Keyshawn Vaughn owner, their running back core, but you can't hate how good and consistent it is. Yeah, definitely, I have Tom Brady.
And that actually was going to be my pick between him and Jalen Hurts as well. Tom Brady, the rare quarterback that you could pick this early in this kind of draft that doesn't have that rushing upside.
Just so many touchdowns.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Omar, you're back on the clock. So your final quarterback of the exercise.
Yeah, this pick, I really like my choice, and I'm going to have to go with Joe Burrow. I just think he's going to be just throwing, and he's going to be going. I think with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd, you just can't go wrong. He can go any way he wants, and I think he has a lot to come back from on that injury. Everybody's expecting a lot from him, and he's just going to show off, I think.
Yeah, pretty good pick there.
Good choice, for sure.
So that leaves me in a tough spot here because there's 2 guys on the board that I don't have a lot of faith in that were top 10 scorers last year in Russell Wilson and Ryan Tannehill. So, I'll stick with my gut. I'm going to take Jalen Hurts. I believe in young Jalen more so than Joseph does, which is shocking because Joseph is our resident Alabama Crimson Tide fan. But I think Jalen Hurts brings a level of dynamic play to this Eagles offense that's been missing probably since Michael Vick made his brief cameo here. I really like this Eagles offense. I talked about it last podcast, how Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, and Miles Sanders are all very intriguing fantasy football players to me. So I might as well ride with my boy Jalen Hurts, take the risk. Colton, you're up. Who you got?
All right. So the 2 guys you mentioned are actually who I deliberated at this pick, and Russell Wilson and Ryan Tannehill. And I'm kind of leaning Ryan Tannehill, and that's who I'm actually going to pick. And obviously, he would have been in my top 12 anyways, even if he didn't acquire Julio, but he just got Julio. So that's a huge, huge, huge boost to his overall output. And now that he has 2 viable receivers, I think he's going to do a lot. And surprisingly, he's not really a guy that we consider rushing, right? He's not like someone you look at and you're like, oh, I'm going to pick him for rushing upside. We had 7 rushing touchdowns last year, which is actually huge on top of 30-plus TDs and a lot of yards. So he's just a guy that is kind of underrated and someone that I definitely feel comfortable with drafting in 2021 and probably beyond.
And I would say, just looking at this list, I would have to say Ryan Tannehill is a top 5 rushing quarterback in the NFL right now. I mean,
those rushing touchdowns are just huge.
And he can fly. Former wide receiver in college, Texas A&M. So
he's got wheels for sure.
Hunter, close it out. Who you got? Our quarterback.
Let me just double check that I didn't miss anybody. Russell Wilson's still available, right?
Russell Wilson is still available. Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield.
I'm not gonna lie, there's some good potential left right now. Matthew Stafford in LA or in the Rams. That's a beautiful spot for him. Trevor Lawrence, I love what he could do in Jacksonville, especially with their defense not being exactly high powered, I would say. It's gonna be a lot of garbage time for him. but I gotta take Russell Wilson. I mean, he has DK Metcalf. He has what was the other wide receiver there? Tyler Lockett. Yeah, he's a great player too. Some people forget that Russell Wilson does usually get some pretty decent rush yards every season. They come sporadically and randomly, but they do help out.
Always against the Rams.
Always against the Rams. He'll show out. A lot of touchdowns. I know they're a run-first team usually. We saw how that didn't really work out when they tried to pass first last season, but I don't think their rush game combined with their, I would say their blocking ability is going to really win them games. So I know they're going to have to rely on the pass game, especially against the high-powered offenses they're going to play. So I think he's going to put up tons of points, and I'm pretty happy with that pick.
And someone had to do it at some point. And you do get the added benefit of not actually relying on him for a typical fantasy season, because as we know, the past 2 years, Russell Wilson flames out by the time the fantasy playoffs come around. So you don't have to worry about that, because for the purposes of our competition here, we're just going to take the season totals. And Russell Wilson was a top 10 fantasy quarterback in our league last year. So what we got here is I took Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Dak Prescott. Colton, remind me who you took.
I took Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, and Ryan Tannehill.
Omar, who'd you take?
I took Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, and Joe Burrow.
And Hunter, who'd you take?
I had Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, and Russell Wilson.
So is there anybody left on the board that stands out to any of you guys before we move on? I will say
Matthew Stafford.
I will say before I took Jalen Hurts, I was heavily considering Matthew Stafford as my pick. That seems to be the obvious one. Another one I really like that kind of slipped under the radar, Kirk Cousins, who I think is still a very underrated fantasy football quarterback. Very possible he finishes as a top 10 fantasy quarterback next year. And I mean, that's all I got on my list. Trevor Lawrence was another one that stood out, but anyone else?
I would say just as like a semi-sleeper is Matt Ryan. I think he's in for a big year. And interestingly enough, I actually had Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins in my top 12. So just how the draft turned out, we couldn't get to him. But definitely really good QBs who are fringe QB1s that probably are going to perform as QB1s, just maybe be a little bit lower on the scale point-wise than these other guys.
Yeah, Stafford and Cousins, unfortunately, do not have a lot of rushing upside, but they're very consistent scorers in the pass game.
6-point passing touchdown could be a lot different, but it's just how it is.
So let's go straight to running backs. Hunter, you won the lottery, in effect. You have the best running back on the board. Are you actually going to pick him, or do you want to taunt me by passing him off to Colton?
Listen, I hate the first pick so much. You guys already know. Too tough. But
yeah, it's really tough, man.
I can't surprise people, and I can't, pick somebody who nobody's expecting. So I'm just gonna have to go with CMC. I know he's gonna do great this year, bounce back year. He really wants to show out. He's really worked hard on his body, and he knows more about conditioning now, I would say. And he's just gonna show out this season. RB1 for sure.
The obviously correct pick. Colton, as we get under our little 10-minute warning here from Zoom, you're second on the clock. Bit of a tougher decision who to take here. Who do you want?
It definitely is tough, because there's actually like 3 guys I have in this range that could all be RB2 pretty easily. And I think I went a little safe here, and I'm going to choose Alvin Kamara. Now, Alvin Kamara to me is just like a CMC light. Basically does everything CMC does with less overall production, but I feel like Alvin actually has a higher touchdown upside, rushing touchdown upside. And I feel like he's been a beast since like his rookie year. So every year you draft him, you're drafting that safety net that is going to be a consistent RB1. And, if you take him as your RB1, he's going to be an RB1, which is huge actually, because a lot of guys you might draft them as an RB1 and then they get injured or play bad and maybe be an RB2, which is loss of value there. So you look at what he does. He was an RB1 in 2020. Obviously, Barkley and CMC out, so still beat out Cook And that's kind of why I put him above Cook, and I have him above Barkley because Barkley has injury concerns. So if you want to be safe, I would say Alvin Kamara for RB2.
Makes a lot of sense. Bit of a curveball from my perspective, what I was planning on happening, but it's a great pick. And I'm going to follow it up with what I think is also a great pick, which is the aforementioned Dalvin Cook, who finished as RB2 last year behind Alvin Kamara. Dalvin Cook, what did he score? 343 points in PPR in our league. Absolutely insane. He has the receiving upside, not as much as some other running backs like Kamara and McCaffrey, but enough in an offense that is pretty good, with an offensive line that is better than last year, with a defense that still has a lot of question marks. This is a Vikings team that's going to have to score a lot, and they're going to lean on their best player, who is Dalvin Cook. So, Omar, back-to-back picks for you. Do number 4, and then we'll get to number 5 after you explain it.
Yeah, for sure. So at number 4, I think my pick would have to be Derrick Henry. I just think it's a pretty safe pick. He is a big part of the Titans offense, and I think that he should be going back for I think he went for just over 2,000 yards last year, and I think he's probably looking at something similar again this year. So I think that's a pretty safe pick at number 4. I'm not sure what you guys had in this range, but I was thinking he would slip around here.
Yeah, he was definitely in that range. And what's actually crazy about him is that he has close to 0 receiving upside, right? So him being in this high just shows how good of a RB he is rushing wise.
And in half PPR format, you could even argue him probably up to number 1, but certainly the second best guy.
Oh,
just
for
by
sure.
Slightly nerfing the points per reception. So Derrick Henry, a great pick at 4. Do you have a similarly great pick at 5, Omar?
Yes, so I think I'm going to have to take Saquon Barkley at 5 because he's just going to come back and just go crazy. And his legs are just a monstrosity of T-Rex legs. So I think he's just going to go. And I think, as much as a lot of people have put faith in Daniel Dimes this year, I think he'll do fine. I don't think he'll go crazy. But Barkley's going to have to be a big part of that offense so they win games if they want to really win, because a lot of their offense has kind of boosted up in this last few years. I know Washington's looking nice. Cowboys are going to be coming back strong. So, yeah, if they want to win, yeah, they're going to have to use Barkley.
Yep, that's a pretty good pick. So for me, this puts me in a bit of a situation. You've got the top 4 I have listed here are Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, and Antonio Gibson. But there's a guy further down that I just can't pass up on. Since the start of the 2019 season, he is 3rd in points per game among running backs. It's Austin Ekeler. I cannot pass on Austin Ekeler and risk him getting stolen from me in the next 4 picks. He only had 2 carries inside the 20-yard line last year under Anthony Lynn. Thank God Anthony Lynn is gone. That Chargers offense might look a bit better than it was as shockingly good as it was with Justin Herbert last year. Austin Ekeler just has so much upside. He only played 10 games last year, so he finished as RB27 in our league. But if he plays a full season, he is the guy in that backfield. In a PPR format, you just can't pass on Austin Ekeler. I couldn't risk him getting snatched from me in the next 4 picks here.
That's fair. Surprising, but actually fair when you look at how many receptions he gets. Close to CMC.
Yeah, 20 points per game since the start of the 2019 season, behind only Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook. As just when I saw that stat earlier today, I knew I was going to try and walk away from this draft with Austin Ekeler. Colton, last pick before we have to restart our little Zoom call here.
Okay, so go ahead.
No, who you got? Go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So for this pick, I actually went a little bit safer again. I picked Ezekiel Elliott, who was kind of trash towards the back half of last year, but you got to look at the situation, right? He was a top 3 RB when Dak Prescott was healthy, and Prescott is healthy, so you got to presume that Ezekiel Elliott is going to come back in and take that kind of top 4, top 3 RB role that he had RB1 wise. And I think it's a pretty easy pick considering the production he's going to get and the high powered offense, and that the defense of the Cowboys is bad. So offense should see a lot of opportunities. He has receiving upside. He has the rushing upside. He has the TD upside. He has pretty much everything you need. And I think you can probably get him a slight discount this year based off his performance last year. But obviously with Prescott healthy, I got to pick Ezekiel Elliott here.
All right, Hunter, end of round 2. You're on the clock. We all know who you're picking. So go ahead, Indianapolis Colts fan, and tell us who you are picking right now.
It's going to be a very big surprise for you guys, but I'm actually going to pick Jonathan Taylor. And to me, it's not even close. I mean, there's some guys I have on here who would, fall to this range who I really like. But the fact that Jonathan Taylor got to me, as a Colts fan, I can't help but pick him, especially since I know some of his stats, like his 91 or 92% catch rate this year, which was just amazing for running backs with over 30 targets. He had, I want to say, close to 1,500 all-purpose yards from scrimmage, which is just amazing, especially considering that he didn't play as much throughout the middle of the season as he did closing it. I mean, with a couple more touches, I want to say he had 260 touches this year. If he gets anywhere, maybe 20, 30 more touches, he's a couple hundred more yards, and it's just going to be an amazing RB1 season for him. Pretty easy pick for me. Colts O-line just is absolutely amazing. I want to say top 4, top 5 O-line in the league, especially run blocking. You got Marlon Mack is back, which I think is actually going to keep Jonathan Taylor fresher for longer, so he can put up big numbers closing out the season for the fantasy playoffs, which we all know is very important. And Carson Wentz is going to keep the defense honest, so they can't pressure as much as they did with Phillip Rivers, since they knew it wasn't going to be a deep, too many deep balls being thrown on them. So it's just going to open it up for him.
We were talking about Jonathan Taylor earlier in our group chat about how his ADP seems a little inflated. At least I know to me and Joseph, it seems a little inflated. But right here, getting him at pick 8, I think that's probably an appropriate spot for this coming season, where Nyheim Hines is still going to have a role. A lot of people think Jonathan Taylor is just going to shoulder 25 carries a game and multiple receptions. Colton, Omar, does that sound right to either of you guys?
Yeah, I had Jonathan Taylor on my rankings at 9, which hearing Hunter talk about Jonathan Taylor makes me a little sad because of Cam Akers. I had Cam Akers at 7. So, but they're kind of similar in the sense that they both had a very slow start and then picked it up towards the end of the year and are now going like supremely high in Dynasty. Well, at least JT is still after today. But yeah, I agree with where he's at right here on this list. I don't know if I take him higher than that, but right here seems like a very good spot to take him.
Yeah, right in the sweet spot. Hunter, you also have the 9th pick. I said in our group chat during our little break just now that I'm pretty sure I know exactly who you're picking. It's the other big dynasty back that you own. Am I correct in that? And who is it?
Well, this one is going to be a big surprise for you guys because I'm not taking who you think I'm taking. I'm going to take Antonio Gibson.
Oh, wow. All right.
It's a little early.
I thought Zach was going to take him from me.
You guys forget, I love Gibson. I mean, he's a great player, great young player. I feel like he has a lot of unrealized potential that he's going to show out this season. I mean, he's worked on his actual, for actually being a running back hasn't been what he's mainly done. So I feel like he's going to get more pass attempts, which is what he needed last season. His rushing is going to get better. His vision is going to improve this season. And I just think he can be an RB1, no matter what happens with the team. I don't know if they're going to have a winning record or not, but I think it's going to be immaterial for him. He's still going to have a great season. I mean, he has a deep threat like Terry McLaurin, and I think they got another deep threat to take over the top, so they're not going to have to worry about stacked boxes as more. They have a new quarterback who's, should improve the team greatly compared to what they've had in the past. So it's just going to be a great offense to be a part of.
All right. Colton, you're on the clock. Are you going to surprise us with anything here, or are you going to stick to the rankings
It
here?
depends on your standard of surprise. So I'm gonna pick Nick Chubb here. I feel like it's just an easy pick for me to make. He only played in 12 games last season and was still the RB11. So to me, that's insane. I'm not too nervous about Hunt. I know they both eat. So them both eating and Chubb still being the main benefactor there in a run first offense is fine for me. Browns have a really good O line as well. The offense as a whole is a lot better. And you look at the end of the season of 2020, he just went crazy when he came back. There was the weeks where we were kind of disappointed that he had the injury, but obviously he came back strong. First week, 19 points, and then proceeded to have double digits all the way through 2020. So definitely feel comfortable drafting him here, and I think it's a great value pick.
And you definitely made my job easier because I was torn between Nick Chubb and the guy that I'm picking, Aaron Jones. I pulled up their average points per game in our league last year. If you remove Antonio Williams from the Buffalo Bills, who had one game of 21 points, who sticks at number 4 on the rankings, Jones came in at number 5 with 18.9 points per game. Chubb came in a little bit behind him at 7 or at 8 with 17.6. And I was really torn between both of them because I am a bigger believer here than probably everyone except Hunter in the role A.J. Dillon is going to have for this team. But I think as long as Aaron Rodgers is there, Aaron Jones is going to get his. He's going to score, and this offense is going to be running at a high level. And you like to have good running backs that are in good offenses. And with Colton taking Nick Chubb, it made it a pretty easy decision for me. So,
yeah, and I had Aaron Jones right after Nick Chubb. So
there you go.
I feel like we came to the same kind of dilemma, and just I don't know if you went a different way in your actual rankings, but
I
close.
didn't list out individual rankings. I'm kind of working off a little spreadsheet that I stole from someone else.
Would you have picked?
That's really tough. Oh man,
I'm gonna make you think.
I will go ahead. You guys know I'm very big on PPR running backs. I would go ahead and stick with Aaron Jones, especially because I think his passing work is gonna go up a little bit this season. AJ Dillon, not as good of a pass catcher as Jamal Williams.
Yeah.
So that would be the con. But that's a tough pick, and I'm glad I didn't have to actually make it because I might have sat here for a little bit longer to make that call.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like to say I also had Aaron Jones at the same pick as you.
Right.
And you're just making me even happier because you picked Ekeler and Aaron Jones, who I happen to own both in our new Dynasty League. So you're just making me feel so much better, Zach.
Well, there you go.
Trade Bruin here.
So
seems like
sounds like you're up now, Omar. So I did just steal one of your running backs from you. So maybe I can make you a little sadder in that way.
This might be a little surprise, but I'm going to put a lot of faith in this next pick. I just feel like he has a lot of potential, and I'm going to go with Najee Harris. I think that if the Steelers decide to use him the way they were using Le'Veon Bell back when I was using him to kill you guys in our fantasy league, I think that he can put up some crazy numbers. So I think it might be maybe just a tad bit high, but I think he's probably going around maybe in that area. Did you guys want to add anything before I move on to the next pick?
I'll just say not a great offensive line and not a good strength of schedule, but you honestly can't pass up on a workhorse that's so young and talented like Najee, especially in PPR because he has the catching upside.
And I would add, in regards to it being too early, I usually go with, what is this, Lindy Sports Fantasy Football Preview. Give them a free plug right here. And on their rankings that I'm using right here, Najee Harris was the second best running back available just now. So seems like right in the range of where you'd want to pick him. Mm-hmm. And speaking of that, Omar, next pick?
I think that I know what the next pick is and I want to take it, but I don't like them and I don't want to take them. So I'm just
say who it is first before you do it, because I want to know.
That pick is CEH. But the pick I'm gonna go with is Chris Carson.
Ooh.
Just because I think Chris Carson is just nasty, and I'm so sad that I had to trade him, but I did it to benefit my team overall in the long run in our home league. But I think Chris Carson is going to probably be like for sure top 8 without a doubt in redraft leagues this year. He's just got I don't know. I think him and Russell Wilson are just a nasty duo. He's putting up double-digit games when he's healthy. Like regardless, he's a must start when he's healthy. So
Definitely a guy that you don't really feel comfortable with, but a guy that always does like has high production every year. So definitely can see why you picked him.
He
Yeah.
stays healthy, he could be a great back, but I mean, staying healthy, that's the
Yeah,
hardest
that's the
thing.
issue, right? For both of their backs,
Mhm.
actually.
Mhm.
Penny hasn't been healthy since his rookie year,
Being
really.
drafted, yeah.
Well, Omar, I took 2 of your new Superflex Dynasty startup running backs. You took one of mine. I was hoping to get Chris Carson in the next round, but you stole him from me. I will add he finished as RB13 in fantasy points per game last year. And just to double check, he played 12 games last year. The year before that, 15. The year before that, 14. So while he's usually banged up, he does stay on the field quite a bit. It was a great pick, great value, even taking him earlier than I wanted
Thank you.
because the guy that I am taking here is another one of my Dynasty startup Superflex running backs. The guy who actually was the top ranked guy on the board when you picked. It's Joe Mixon, who is RB11 last year in points per game. Obviously got hurt. Obviously, a lot of people do not want to put their trust in Joe Mixon again. But I did in our league. I traded a couple first round picks for him because he's only 24 years old. He's playing for an improving Bengals team, a Bengals offense that is getting better. The offensive line still a bit of a question mark, but Mixon is a very talented running back. And for the first time in his career, he'll be free of Giovanni Bernard, the PPR vulture in that backfield. I really think Joe Mixon is going to put up nice numbers if he stays healthy this year. And I'm getting him, what are we at right now? Like 14? RB 14? I think that's
Yeah,
great
we're at
value.
14.
So that's going to be my pick, and hopefully he will lead me to victory in our new Superflex Dynasty League. Colton, former
With
Joe
RB
Mixon
15.
order. Who you got?
Let's see. I was actually going to pick Joe Mixon, so you kind of snatched him from me.
So that means I'm doing good then.
Yes. Feel like a lot of our stuff has been close. So with this, I will probably just go with the guy that was mentioned a little bit earlier by Omar, and I'll pick CH. And it's just an easy pick for me at this range because CH has a lot of upside in that offense. I felt like we got a little carried away with CH last year and projecting him so high. Now we saw that really Chiefs don't like using a running back as much as we thought they would. But he's still good enough to where I feel like he's underrated now, and he still had over 1,000 scrimmage yards. He was banged up a little bit some weeks, but overall, I think he's just a really good young pick and player, and I feel pretty confident picking him at 15 to be like an RB2.
And speaking of him sort of being underrated, you actually took him right at what his current Dynasty ADP is on Sleeper. 15,
Oh, yeah,
RB
I would.
15. So
If I got
right
him
on the
there,
money
I would be
and
fine
probably
with that.
better value.
Mm-hmm. For sure. He is definitely very underrated this year, in my opinion. There are just so many good running backs that we're out into the RB2 range. And honestly, every guy that we mentioned has a chance to be RB1 for sure. So,
And
RB1, not RB1. That's Christian McCaffrey.
And for people watching out for next season, be careful of a similar Najee Harris effect where you see a lot of people taking him very early. He has a disappointing season behind that offensive line, and all of a sudden his ADP tanks going into next season, and you can get him at extreme value. So just be cognizant of that fact going forward. Hunter, we're coming up to the end of the 4th round, so you are making your second to last and your last picks here. So who's the first of them?
Well, you guys know I love potential. I love, when a good, efficient offense has a good player, and that equals just great fantasy value. So I'm going to have to go with the obvious choice for me, at least, in J.K. Dobbins. I think the offense is just hyper efficient. It's been hyper efficient for multiple years. The question mark of whether they could keep the efficiency, I feel, has already been answered. The threat of Lamar Jackson running the ball just scares the head of all opposing defenses, opening up the lanes for J.K. Dobbins to get some great yards per carry. He's working really hard on his route running and his catching this offseason, at least by all reports. And I think that's really going to help. If the offense changes at all, I think they would work on not having Lamar Jackson rush as frequently, which can only help J.K. Dobbins. And the other running back there, Gus Edwards, I mean, he's going to keep him fresh. He's going to take a lot of the lumps when he doesn't need to. And that's just all you can hope for with, slightly smaller back. I know Gus Edwards is going to have like a good efficiency like he always does. And it's going to keep the defense just watching all the time. They're not going to be able to key in on either of them. So it's just going to keep the offense efficient. Pretty easy pick for me.
So Hunter does end up with another of his main dynasty running backs, J.K. Dobbins. Hunter, you have another pick. Who you got?
Oh, this one is tough. I'm not going to lie. I'm split between two running backs here. Both I see just immense upside with. Both are going to take a huge leap this year. I can almost guarantee it. The offenses aren't the most exciting for me, but I do see how either one could be the next pick here. But I'm going to have to go with maybe not the better running back, but the better situation with Miles Sanders.
Oh, my heart, my beating heart. Go ahead and talk about how great Miles Sanders is.
I'm not even going to say anything either.
It was tough. It was a tough decision for me because I do like the other player, but Miles Sanders, he has a great opportunity. Jalen Hurts, I mean, he has great rushing. He's a really good rusher. He's going to add that added like threat that's going to, not in the same way Lamar Jackson opens up the lanes for J.K. Dobbins, but to a lesser degree, I think he's going to do the same thing. The offense is not the best passing offense, so they're going to have a lot of rushing, and he's going to be a good check down for a young quarterback who might need it frequently. He's been tested already. You've seen him go through, play through injuries and bounce back, so that's not the biggest worry for me. I'm pretty sure the O-line in Philly has improved, so all that added together just makes a great situation for Miles Sanders. He's an extremely efficient rusher and receiver, so it's a pretty easy pick for me again.
And his new head coach is the former offensive coordinator of your team, Hunter, who saw a running back resurgence. Miles Sanders, my guy in our new dynasty league. I traded for a package that included him, and I gave away Antonio Gibson. So that should tell you how much I believe in Miles Sanders this year. I just want to read his stat line from Jalen Hurts taking over. 32 points, 14 carries for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns in Hurts' first game against the New Orleans Saints. And then he scored 10 points the following week against Arizona and another 18 in what would have been the fantasy Super Bowl against the Dallas Cowboys. So Miles Sanders, my guy, off the board. Colton, do you have someone that stands out to you as your guy still on the board?
Yeah, actually I have 2 guys still on the board that stand out to me. And the one that I feel will probably be better in 2021 is actually David Montgomery. Now, I was comparing him to DeAndre Swift, and I think dynasty-wise, I prefer Swift, but in 2021, I think I would go Montgomery for redraft. We saw in our league in 2020, he actually scored as the 4th RB in the entire league. So just a top 5 RB from 2020, and getting him at this point, which is like mid RB2 range, is just like insane values. So I feel like I couldn't pass on him. And yeah, just an easy pick for me.
Mm-hmm. He's going to have a new quarterback this year, maybe more efficient offense.
I'm still confident in him as at worst a low-end RB1 for at least 2021.
And to add a little egg to my face, after last week's episode where I predicted Tariq Cohen to be a great sleeper this year, it sounds like Tariq Cohen might miss the first 6 weeks of the season on the pup list.
I saw that.
So a little bit embarrassing for me, but a good pick, especially here. I believe that was RB 18 off the board.
Insane,
That's pretty great value.
For sure.
So that puts me on the clock, and Hunter's decision actually did make this easier for me in one respect. He took one Miles off the board. I'm going to take another Miles off the board. It is my guy, Myles Gaskin. He was RB10 in points per game among running backs last year. Only played about 10 games. There were a lot of questions about who they were going to bring in to replace him. They ended up bringing in Malcolm Brown. So Myles Gaskin, I have a lot of faith in him. If Tua is as bad as he was last year, Myles Gaskin's still going to eat. If Tua slightly improves, I still think Myles Gaskin is going to eat. He's a very talented player, very explosive player. He's a difference maker on that Miami Dolphins team. I don't care what Joseph says about him. And he almost saved their season. They ended up losing the next week to the Bills, but he almost saved their season against the Las Vegas Raiders on that big catch and run for a touchdown. And I just couldn't pass him up. RB10 in running back points per game last year, as Colton shows off the new replacement for Myles Gaskin next season, I'm sure. But I couldn't let it go. So just for reference, Jonathan Taylor, 17.3 points per game last year. Myles Gaskin, 16.7. Behind him, Joe Mixon, 16.6. Austin Ekeler, 16.5. And Chris Carson, 15.7. Myles Gaskin scored more points per game than Josh Jacobs, Ezekiel Elliott, Antonio Gibson, but we won't really count that because Gibson had a bit of a weird year. But yeah, I'm all in on Myles Gaskin. RB19, I think, is really good value. I believe he finished RB27 or 28 last year in only 10 games. So I'm crazy. I love Myles Gaskin. It is what it is.
Wait, I just want to clarify. I'm not crazy, right? DeAndre Swift is still available, right?
Yes. And I have no regrets.
God, dude.
I have no regrets.
Dude. That was actually the picture I showed was DeAndre Swift looking very
Oh,
confused.
there we go. No, I have no regrets.
It's kind of hard to see, but there you go. I don't know.
I think a big part of it was I talked about how poor Anthony Lynn was as a coach last year with Austin Ekeler. And we already heard this Lions team talking about how Jamal Williams is going to be their bigger lead back, which means I don't know how many opportunities DeAndre Swift might even see in the red zone. Ekeler had 2 carries in the red zone last year.
I'm just not really worried at all about what Lynn says, and I just think that it's all fugazi, and DeAndre Swift is still a fringe RB1 for me for 2021 and an RB1 in Dynasty beyond. And it's just crazy that he's still available at this point, but it just goes to show there's a lot of good RBs, right? So, but definitely something I had to check on.
And with that point,
go ahead, Omar. Close it out.
At that point, DeAndre Swift is my pick.
There you go.
At number 20. It's kind of tough because if Zach would have picked DeAndre Swift, I would not have picked Myles Gaskin, and I would have chosen my man, Josh Jacobs. But alas, I'm very happy with DeAndre Swift. A very, very good pick. Like Colton said, I think he's like probably going to be one of the centers of that offense, if not like the center, because they have TJ Hawkinson, who's like one of the only hands out there who can catch. What do they got? Tyrell Williams and the ghosts of Tyrell Williams and Brashard Perryman.
They got Cephas.
Yeah, and then they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, but the problem is he's going into Ghost Town. So
I do think Quintus Cephas might have a nicer season than some people seem to think. But
I have him too, and I have a couple of his shares, but I don't know. He's not anybody who's going to be out like a elite wide receiver one, though.
No, but he's a very talented individual who would have been drafted a lot higher were it not for his Wisconsin University administration screwing him over false accusations. But that's a conversation for another day. Is there anyone here that stands out? The big one to me, Mike Davis. He averaged RB20 points per game last year. He finished RB12. So he only really played 13 games, I believe. McCaffrey started 3. He finished RB12. He finished as an RB1. He's going to a Falcons offense that we think is going to be pretty good, and he's really the only man in that backfield. Mike Davis was a guy that if we went another round, I would be taking him right after Omar's pick. So anyone else stand out to you guys still on the board?
Said like a true Panthers fan.
Yeah.
This is like an upside play. Travis Etienne looks pretty good. I think Josh Jacobs, as Omar mentioned, is obviously another pick that is probably he's locked in to be an RB2. I think even with Drake there, so I'd feel confident.
Yeah, that's
picking
what
him
I'd
there.
take next if we were going another round.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne,
Um,
both really good. I like Javonte Williams
Mhm.
in Denver.
Yeah.
I think he has a lot of upside. You know, depending on which one takes over that backfield, it's gonna be Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, whichever one's gonna have a lot of points this year.
I think that's certainly possible that we can see early on in the season that Williams just takes over and is an RB, high-end RB2, fringe RB1, maybe even in the RB1 range. But I feel like it'd be pretty hard to dethrone the top 12. But we could see. Definitely possible. He's talented enough to do that.
Especially with Melvin Gordon almost certainly still being around this season. His contract makes it almost completely stupid for the Broncos to try and cut him. Yeah, but that is a pretty decent pick. Kareem Hunt's another one that stood out here. He's listed exactly as RB20 on this list I have in front of me. I believe he finished RB20, maybe RB21 in points per game last year. Still a lot of value in a split backfield between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
RB10 in our league that I'm seeing. So
Overall,
Darrell Henderson.
overall in 2020.
Darrell Henderson around this range isn't that bad.
Oh,
either,
dude.
I think.
I completely forgot out of grief, man. Darrell Henderson in this range would actually be huge.
So I believe-
we saw what
I
he
think
did
this would
last
be
year.
really nice.
I believe I
Mhm.
saw in Best Ball, Josh Norris's underblog Best Ball, that he has risen all the way up to RB19. So
And I feel
Wow,
like
that's
even
actually-
then, that's
yeah.
kind of low, to be
Right.
honest. For
Yeah, I
what
was gonna
can
say
do.
he could probably make it up to probably 15 range.
All I know is that like 0 RB drafters are probably creaming right now because I feel like he could literally be taken as your RB1 for a team that goes heavy in other positions and do fine.
well, I'm wondering if he might be out of range for those people if they haven't drafted yet at this point.
RB19 though, I mean, yeah, maybe RBs do go pretty quick, because
Chris Carson-
everyone wants to lock down 2. So
Chris Carson is listed as the RB19 that I have right here in front of me. So, and Dobbins is 21.
it does get kind of icky though. I don't know if it's different this year, seeing as like all these names that I'm like every name I've heard so far besides maybe Myles Gaskin, I've been like, yeah, that's fine. Even Myles Gaskin as an RB2 isn't bad, right? So
Yeah.
all these names I've heard, I haven't really had a problem with taking as my 2 RBs. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see though.
Yeah. And when Myles Gaskin finishes as an RB1 this season, I will humbly accept the trophy that I will inevitably win with this draft. So,
Fair enough.
all right. So, another successful podcast in the books. Next week, we'll go ahead and do wide receivers and tight ends. We'll see if we have the same configuration here or maybe a slightly different
I
panel.
feel like we'll see a lot of this disparity between picks in that one. I feel like all of ours in this one were like really close.
Oh, yeah.
But I think especially when it gets to wide receivers, it's gonna be crazy.
Oh, yeah. At the end of the season, we'll look back and see who won each position here. So it'll be between the 4 of us for quarterbacks and running backs. And maybe we'll total them up. Who knows? But we'll see how next week goes. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel here. Follow the podcast at Kings of GT on Twitter. And we will see you back here next week for the wide receiver and tight end draft. Guys, great podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Yep. Good to be here.
Adios.